And 5, 6, 7, 8. I was trying to make it. Yeah, I tried to make it Christmas.
Very good.
Oh God, this is the Smart in Public podcast. Welcome everybody. It's a podcast that discusses business, careers, and life through the eyes of public relations and communications experts. I'm Katie Boyson.
And I'm Katie Duffy.
And we're here wearing some holiday gear for all of you following on our socials.
This is like, look, I want to call it the Christmas special episode, but like being PC, I'll call it the holiday special episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, this is our holiday special.
It's an all-inclusive holiday special.
That's right. Everybody's welcome. For those at home who won't see socials, I'm wearing a Santa hat. And Katie Boyson has fashioned some sort of headpiece from lights at the Christmas lights from her house. And it's working is all I'll say. Like, we'll put it up on social. You can have a look, but it's kind of a necklace come headpiece come she's just decorated herself in lights. It's very Clark Griswold.
That's a good way to put it. I also feel like I can already feel it pulling my hair, so we'll just see how long this lasts. But essentially, as Duffy said, I just took some house Christmas lights and wrapped them around my head and turned them on. So here we are.
And that's basically our personalities encaptured. I found a Santa hat, I've popped it on my head, and Katie Boyson went all in and put Christmas lights all over herself. So
if you don't go all in on something, what are you going all in on?
Yeah,
I say.
That's right.
All right. Do you want to introduce kind of what we're doing today? It's end of the year, so obviously you can get the gist.
It's the silly season. We're winding down, guys. I think there's a couple of things I wanted to do, little housekeeping. After this episode, which should come out right before the Christmas festivities on the 25th, we're hoping to get it out Christmas Eve. We'll see how we go.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Like just life in general, but let's see. But yeah, this should come out just before then. And then we're going to have a little hiatus just so we can have a little Christmas holiday season break. In Australia, it's beautiful weather. It's time to like switch off, swim, have prawns, do the whole thing. And in Bend, I'm sure there'll be skiing, maybe. I don't know if there's snow yet.
There sure is, baby.
Alrighty. So we're going to have a little hiatus, and then we plan to be back in January, ready to go. We've got some awesome guests lined up for January. And so we're kind of going to come back with a bang because we've got quite a few lined up and ready to go. So we're excited to be back. But we just wanted to preface that you probably won't hear from us for a couple of weeks, but only that long, and then we'll be back. But what are we doing today? So we thought we'd just do a little like, what's been our like top moments, top 10 from 2024. And it's a bit of a mix of like PR campaigns that really stood out, big disasters that really stood out and made media attention, and then a little bit on the personal side, kind of highlights or lowlights, whatever we're thinking from the year that's just gone.
Yeah, it's fun to reflect. I feel like there's been so much news. There's always so many moments. But when I was going through and kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk about, many of the things I was like, fuck, that was this year. Like, yeah. I feel like
I know
things either felt like they were yesterday or they were 9 years ago.
Yes, I had the exact same thing when I was thinking about stuff that stuck in my mind. I was like, was that 2024?
Well, I literally was like, were the Olympics this year? Yeah. But I feel like it was 9 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So this year has felt like that. Like I've lived 9 lives this year, definitely.
Have you seen some of the memes that were like, I feel like this year felt like having surgery where the anesthesia didn't work and like things like that?
No.
A bit grim, but
I mean one yesterday that was like the child just like slowly taking steps, and it's like me, and then at the very end of the line is the woman with her arms out, and it's like, that's Christmas, and it's like crawling to Christmas. I feel like
you sent me that. I actually laughed out loud at that. The other one it makes me think of is the little kid where like the show must go on and he's dressed as a reindeer and he's dancing but crying on stage.
That's the best. Yeah, that is a really good one. I love that one too.
Okay, so let's start out with campaigns and PR like moments of 2024. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. The one I wanted to talk about first was one that I just thought had a number of different elements that really worked well, and I personally really resonated with it. So we talked about it on one of the pods, but it was the Dad Shift campaign in the UK, where overnight they put all the baby carriers with dolls in them on the male statues around London and around the UK. And
Right.
I just thought it was a really good example of like old school guerrilla PR where you do a stunt, it gets that earned media coverage, and then you have this really nice follow on with like, what is it about? And it was tied to a really, I think, important issue. It had a really good values alignment behind it. They didn't try and shove it in people's faces about parental leave. It was just this like really clever way of saying like, hey, we need to do better in giving dads and secondary carers that time off as well. And because, you know, the UK is quite far behind other European countries. And so I just thought it was really clever, pretty low cost, really. Like they would have had to get permission to do it. But like other than that, it's a bunch of baby carriers and then they're ready to go. You put out a press release the day you do it. I'm not trying to simplify that campaign. I'm sure it would. But like in terms of like, you know, it doesn't have to be that big flashy ad, or it doesn't have to be this campaign that is really, really expensive. It can just be really clever in terms of linking exactly what you're trying to do and making it really significant. So that was like number one for me in terms of like stood out.
I really liked that one too, because I felt like obviously one of the reasons why it worked was because it was something that is so needed to be talked about as well. Like it really emotively captured people. Yeah, I agree. That's a good one. I'm looking at mine and I'm trying to figure out which one to go first, because there's one that's just so obvious, but maybe I'll dig into. Okay, I'm going to do this one first. I am going to talk about the Wicked publicity tour, because I feel like, you know, from a marketing, advertising, all the way down to the stylists, like their outfits were perfectly coordinated, but also like very fashion. They were everywhere. Like the Target collaboration, and just you could not escape Wicked, and you also didn't get sick of it. Like I think that individually both of the actresses as well could have been very vulnerable to like getting hate.
Yeah.
You know, because I think, you know, media loves to hate women and that sort of thing as well. But they stuck together and created their own narrative of like companionship and support. And people just really latched onto that. I don't know if it was because of the holidays and we were all just tired from the year when the movie finally came out. We were just happy to see that camaraderie. But the way that it all came together and kind of built throughout the year, despite Ariana Grande and like the cheating scandal that could have happened from, you know, like that, they still came out on top from that. And I just
100%.
thought that was a really, really good one.
That's a real, it's really interesting because that one's also really global. Like it was madness here too. And they came for the premiere here, which, you know, like we're far away. Not a lot of people, they're like that, but it was awesome. And I think got a lot of coverage. Also, did you see that moment where they did that interview, and I think it was with an LGBTQ plus publication, and she talks about like the interviewer said something about like there's a part in the movie. Hands up, haven't seen the movie, so
I haven't seen it either.
Part in the movie, and like people were really resonating with it, and then it kind of really hit. I don't know the actress's name, who plays Elphaba, but and then Ariana puts her hand on her, like just to kind of steady her. And that became like this whole movement. And to kind of to your point, Ariana then came out and was like, oh, I didn't really know what was happening. Like I didn't kind of understand what they were talking about, but I just knew it was kind of a moment and that she might have needed it. And she kind of like puts her hand on her and taps her. And then that became like a whole meme of like the hand. And yeah, I just thought like, to your point, they handled themselves really well. They did the press tour really well. They backed each other up really well. But then, the clothes, they did not break from who they were in terms of like their clothing. Really well done. And like the collaborations, they were in every store. There was something Wicked.
I mean, yet no one is sick of them, you know? Like, you're not sick of them.
Well, I think the movie, from what people have told me, is incredible. So I think that helps too. It's like people go and it's an experience and they loved it. So then they've sort of bought into the magic of it all. But yeah, I think it was a really well done to whoever.
Yeah.
Shout outs to the Wicked team.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. And it was just a
That's a
good,
good
like,
one.
orchestrated across all
Yeah,
facets of what a campaign comes together and looks like.
love it.
Yeah. All right, what's your next one?
Okay, I am going to do one that is a global brand, but it's highly kind of relevant for Australia. So it's from Mastercard, and it was at the beginning of the year, and it was around the Australian Open. So for those that don't know, the Australian Open is one of the Grand Slam tennis tournaments. It's down in Melbourne, happens every year in our summer, so in January. And Mastercard have been the payments partner, like the official payments partner for like 8 years. And so they've been around, they've been sponsoring, their brand is always there, but they wanted to do something really different this year in terms of like what is going to take it to the next level, but also is more values aligned to who they are. And so they're still the payments partner, but they kind of came up with this idea. And basically, and you can look it up and maybe we'll put a link in as well, because there's some really awesome kind of footage and stories behind it. But it's basically the wheelchair ball kid was the campaign. And so if you've been to any tennis tournament or if you watch it on TV, you'll see they have the ball kids who collect the tennis balls as, you know, as they're being hit all over the place. And in Australia, like it's kind of an institution, the ball kids at the Australian Open. It's a real honor to be one. And they're amazing. Like they're so quick. They're incredible. But we've never had someone in a wheelchair be able to do it. And so Mastercard kind of embarked on this campaign to figure out what it could look like. And they did like talk about the money that they would have invested. And this is where I get kind of like, I love when brands go, let's go all in.
Yeah.
And it would have cost money because they got designers. So like industrial designers and people who could think about what tools would they need. They use 3D printing to think about once they designed those tools to go with a wheelchair, what would that look like? They then partnered with one of the wheelchair junior tennis champions. So there is wheelchair tennis, and we've got a young little boy in Australia who's one of the junior champions. They also partnered with one of the adults who's a wheelchair champion tennis player to kind of be one of the ambassadors. They also had, I think her name, I can't remember the female tennis player's name, but another tennis player as kind of part of the campaign. And then they went on this like journey to design these tools that would help this little boy kind of become an Australian Open ball kid. It's totally worth watching the YouTube video of kind of the journey they went on, the design that went into it. And obviously they got tons of earned media, like on every major news channel. Like from an earned perspective, it was amazing. They produced some beautiful content. So like from a content perspective, it's really great. But just in terms of like, why aren't we looking at this? Why aren't we being more thoughtful about how kids with all abilities can have this opportunity and it aligns to their value set? And it would have cost them money. Like it was an investment to do it.
Yeah.
And to do it well and not to be just a token kind of campaign like they actually did. So I just thought it was really like great of a brand to go, we're just not going to do the same thing this year. We're going to do something different, even though we've been a partner for 8 years and we could just keep being the payments partner.
Yeah.
You know? So like shout out to Mastercard, but I just thought it was great. But yeah, well, let's put a link or people pick it up. But yeah, Mastercard wheelchair ball kid, delightful.
There's your keywords. I'll try to add a video into the social stuff for that if I can figure that out. Cool. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is probably the obvious one. But in terms of campaigns, I think as an American, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the U.S. election and all of the things that were that.
You would do the election.
I was really trying. I was like, you know what? Don't be that person. Talk about it. So thinking about the debate, the presidential debate, and then the other presidential debate that happened, and then the vice president debate that everyone probably aligned on that should have been the presidential debate. And then also couldn't forget about Kamala's social campaign and Brat Summer and how all of that came together. You know, it's just, you know, they're eating our dogs in Ohio, like the whole thing of it could be its own episode alone. But I think at a high level, the eyesore that it was of the U.S. presidential campaigns on both sides.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like looking back on it, there's been a lot of articles on like the campaigns themselves and like, you know, the choices they made, like the podcast they went on, you know, like Trump and Joe Rogan. And like, it is interesting. Like, ultimately, you've got to say he ran the better campaign, which is like, you know, quite, I don't know. Yeah. It's scary to me, but I actually think they did, and they knew who they were going for. And they made really strategic decisions about where he was going to show up from a media standpoint, like certain places and where his audience was going to be. What
I heard a lot about was like Trump went broad. He was going to just get the message out to everyone, hence, you know, going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Kamala went towards where did she think she needed the votes, you know? And so then it got too narrow on who she was speaking to, and then forgot about the people that might be on the fence or anything like that. Like, it was too niche in her target audience is the gist of what I gathered a lot from the feedback
I think that's
as well.
Probably right. Yeah. I think it also like their messaging. Like, I just think they went too hard on like what's wrong with him and not why will it be different?
Yes.
They were the incumbent, right? Like, she was different, but ultimately they were the incumbent government. So I don't.
And they got caught on that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I think because JD Vance started to call that out, you know, really loudly towards the end of the campaign. And I just don't think they ever had a really strong answer for that.
No, I don't think so either. So yeah, I think, or at least it didn't come through. So
no,
you know, love or hate the result, I think just purely from looking at it at a campaign perspective, yeah, I think there was some mistakes made.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it really entertained my Australian parents-in-laws, my in-laws. They were trying to like laugh on the phone. We catch up every week, and they were trying to laugh on the phone about it with us, and Scott and I were just like, we just can't talk about it anymore. Please stop.
This is our life.
All right, what do you have?
All right, the next one I have is I don't know if you've seen this one, but Dove have had their kind of Real Beauty campaign for a long time, and we're kind of one of the first brands to do that in terms of like showing inclusive bodies and being a little bit more thoughtful about the way that they market to women and things like that. And so that Real Beauty campaign, I feel like they've now extended, and this year they did this Face of 10 campaign, which was all about kind of this trend that we're seeing of tweens getting into skincare and quite dangerously, like starting to do retinol and things that like really no tween should be putting on their face. And if you look through YouTube and TikTok and, you know, Instagram, there's all these videos of like tweens doing their like morning get ready with me. And a lot of it is like pretty hardcore skincare. And I think there's like a number of issues. There's kind of the issue of like they don't need half this skincare, like put some sunscreen on, you're good to go. But also like there's a large proportion of the population that also can't afford all of that skincare and things like that.
12 steps skincare.
Yeah, it's creating a bit of a divide there. But anyway, they launched this Face of 10 campaign, which is basically this beautiful piece of content, an ad that they've done, which showcases kind of this contradiction between what 10-year-olds kind of used to be doing and then these videos. And they've gone and pulled like real video footage off these platforms. And then they've got footage of like, you know, kids riding bikes and doing kind of the what I would say is like traditionally what we all used to do when we were that age. And they're trying to create this like juxtaposition of like, why is 10 like this now and what are we going to do about it? Like, we need to kind of address this issue. Why aren't we letting kids just be kids? And they partnered with, it's from Ogilvy UK did the campaign. They partnered with Drew Barrymore. So they did a bunch of stuff as part of her show as well. They got a bunch of earned media off the back of the piece of content. And so it, you know, it showed up in a whole, you know, globally, basically. A lot of women's mags, but also on broadcast, like it went pretty viral. And then it started this conversation around like this tween skincare kind of movement. And it's funny, like even the other day I was talking to a relative of mine who has grandchildren. One of her grandchildren is about 11. And she asked for this product from Priceline for Christmas. Like that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
And kind of this, and it's like, I don't think I was asking for product at 11, for Christmas. I was probably asking for rollerblades or like, I don't
Yeah.
know, you know,
What grade are you when you're 11? Like
year,
fifth?
year 6, five
Yeah.
or six maybe.
Hmm.
Year 5 maybe. So like and look, maybe you were doing lip gloss, or I guess, I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe I wasn't, and maybe there were kids. I don't want to generalize. Maybe there
I
were.
wasn't even allowed to shave my legs until
Yeah,
I
like
was like in
I
junior
don't
high.
remember it being, there might have been like a couple of little things. I guess that was the other thing, is it wasn't available. Like
Hmm.
it was like you could get lip smackers, or like,
Yeah.
like there wasn't really a market that, even if we had thought about it, our parents could go and be like, oh, there it all is. We can go buy it. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I thought it was a really interesting campaign, and again, like just a really like important issue that I care about as well, especially given I have little girls now.
Yeah.
It's like, how are we going to tackle this whole issue? And I think brands like Dove have shown over time that they have a voice in this, and that they are trying to do things differently. They're never going to be perfect. They're still a brand that produces product, but I think they do have like sway, and I think they continue to bring out campaigns that try and address some of these issues. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one. God, I feel like I could talk about that topic for ages because I still see, like 10-year-olds throwing fits in Sephora because their mom
I
won't
know.
buy them the Drunk Elephant, moisturizer that's $65.
Well, did you see that Ulta has actually brought out these mini toys that are replicas of like the cool products that people are using? So they're literally like a toy, but it's like a toy Tarte Shape Tape concealer
Mm-hmm.
and a toy, I don't know, what's another cool product? Whatever.
I don't know, Drunk
Um,
Elephant something.
yeah,
Kids love that one. Yeah.
de-bronzy drops, right? Like Drunk Elephant de-bronzy drops, little toy that comes in a little like toy box thing that you buy, and then the kids are playing with them, and they're selling on eBay, and they're going nuts. And kids like are getting them at like 7 and 8, and they don't do anything. They're not makeup. They're a replica toy. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. I just don't want my girls at 7 to have a replica shape tape concealer. Like, why do they need to know what concealer does? And that, like, and I mean, some of it is like, I'm sure they're like, I've got what mummy's got, and it's a bit of a like, I get that.
Yeah.
I just think it's a bit of a worry that we're trying to market to these kids who ultimately will be the buyer. And if you're getting a toy at 7 that's shape tape, what's to stop you buying it at 10?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is like I remember having plastic lipstick when I was little, and that was totally, or like plastic eyeshadow palette. Like I had a fake,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that doesn't really bother me that much because then at least it's like they feel like they've got it and you can like prolong the use. I don't know. I'm also the person that like wanted a pager when I was in 6th grade. And it's so bad because Clueless came out when I was in 6th grade, and I was like, that's who I'm going to be when I grow up.
Well, I mean, and as we all didn't want her closet as well. But, like, yeah.
So
Look,
I wanted a pager. So
it's a complicated issue. I feel really strongly about trying to raise my girls and my son without that stuff for as long as possible. But I also love makeup. So I'm also like trying to find the bridge of like my kids see me putting on makeup as well. So it's like,
I know. There's the other whole can of worms of like, if you want nice skin, you've got to eat good food, So they're like, we could go all the way down. I mean, if you're going to talk about Elle Macpherson later, maybe we can talk about that. But
gosh, I didn't have that on my list, but maybe I should have. Okay. What's yours?
Okay, my next one is not so much a campaign, but like a moment that happened that I really enjoyed, and then something that happened off the back of it. So I would say the moment was like women's sports in the US is starting to like take a turn. Like Caitlin Clark beat the NCAA's all-time scoring record for men and women. Not to mention like contracts and all that stuff that came off the back of it, and how it kind of elevated women's basketball in the US. And then the US women's soccer team won the gold medal in the Olympics. And then Alex Ohanian, who is the husband of Serena Williams, but also a co-founder of Reddit, started a documentary called The Off Season, which documents and supports the US women's not just the US national team, but like the women's league professionally in training in the off season. And he made a documentary to like gain awareness around it. So like, I feel like women's sports is having a moment and like getting its kind of like time in the US, which I think is great. And I think men are getting behind it as well. So I'm loving to see it, you know, who's that guy? Jason Sudeikis, or what's his name? Like he's like a women's basketball fan. We're seeing like celebrities starting to come out and support women's soccer and the soccer leagues. Like I'm loving all the young players that are coming up, like Soph Smith and Trinity Rodman, and like it's just really cool to see some of like that recognition that, you know, after all the hard work that they've put in, and it's such a good sport anyway.
This is a great one. I actually totally agree with you. I think it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's global, but definitely in Australia, women's sport is having a moment as well. Probably built off the back of the success of the Matildas and like how much love they have. And like their games are still sellouts every single time. We've got the Asian Women's Cup coming up, I think. And I think we're hosting. I want to say we are hosting in Australia. And so there's like this big movement around that as well. And then I believe, I don't know the family, I will have to look it up. But one of our really well-off families. Oh, no, I do know. You know Robin, who's on the Tesla board? She's Australian. Robin Denholm, I think her name is. She's chair of the Tesla board. Very powerful woman, very well-off woman. Her and her family have just bought the WNBA kind of, they're the owners now of the
rights or something.
Yeah, I think so. And so they're rebuilding. They're hiring a bunch of new people, and they're kind of really investing a ton of money because they're massive basketball fans, and they want to build the women's league up again here.
That's cool.
Now, some of those facts might have been wrong in that story. I read an article about it the other day, and it's like slipped out of my mind. But
anyone that listens to this show knows that we're all about facts here.
I mean, just source check everything that we say. But I just think you're right, and I think it's really exciting, and it's shifting into that like mindset that women's sport does draw a crowd, women's sport does draw sponsors, or it is now, and we need to keep investing, particularly at the grassroots level, but it's fun and it's exciting.
I just love that if you see it, you can be it kind of mentality because, you know, as you know, like I played soccer all up through college, but never really thought about ever playing professionally because I knew those women were making like dog meat and the league was brand new when that was an opportunity for me. And so seeing that kind of momentum, like it's going to just so exciting to see that potentially come to light for young girls and for the women that are currently in those sports that are paving the way. Love it.
It's awesome. Okay, that's a great one. Love it.
You have one more?
I have one more. And look, we don't need to go into it, okay? But I couldn't not put Jaguar in.
Is it because of the amount of fact checking that happened after? Are you still feeling guilty?
I'm partly putting it in because to try and have us talk about cars was probably one of the funniest things ever. But I just kind of like love or hate the ad. I kind of love how nuts it all went and how much earned media they got and how much influencer conversations and how much it was everywhere. And I kind of go like, isn't that the point? Like they just knew what they were doing, I think, in being really different, really controversial, leading up to the launch of the car. You know, will it help them? Will the car sell? Only time will tell. I don't think so. But I have to commend them. If you want to create like a market stir, that's what they did. It's a rebrand, you know, they're trying to do things differently. Like I just kind of commend them for going all in. Like they didn't half do it. They were like, great, fuck it. Let's go and do a really kind of out there ad. Let's be really out there. And then let's lead up to the car launch. And I just thought it was like, you know, I have to mention it. And because we hit at like the fact checking around cars.
Listen, I would love to see what one of the cars actually looked like. I think I mentioned last time, it just looks like an AI rendering to me. So I want to see the car. Like, when can we see the car? Will they sell? Who knows? Who cares? But, you know, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? But it would be remiss not to put it in our 2024 wrap.
That's true. I feel like we've talked about it for like 3 episodes.
Yeah. There you go, Jaguar. You're in again.
You did it. Okay, my last one is you're gonna think that this is something that happened 9 years ago, but I looked it up and I was like, oh my god, it was in 2024.
I have one of those too coming up, so don't worry.
So Jojo Siwa's or that is her name, her rebrand that was like worked for 3 minutes and then went downhill all the way from the Karma song. I don't know if you saw like with the dance that did like the gyration. Oh my gosh, this might be very American. But she got way ahead of herself. Poor thing. Like, I think she got really excited because she was getting, what she thought was going to be like a long career ahead of her. But then she turned 21. She got super drunk at Disneyland and was super obnoxious to like staff. And I don't know. It was just a bad look. And I think the poor gal got a ton of bad advice. But I just feel like it was something that was all over TikTok. And then all of a sudden it shut off. And I'm now, oh yeah. And she also had a car that was wrapped with her own face on it. It was just a bunch of stuff like that that it was, I don't know. You want to root for people, but sometimes you want to just like let the train wreck as well.
Sometimes you need to see the train come off the tracks.
I might take that out. I feel like I'm being so mean, but I just enjoyed watching it.
Listen, it's okay. Like you've said that maybe she's got bad advice. Maybe she needs nice people around her that are going to help her. But also,
or at least a new choreographer. Like,
yeah, or like there's no world where I would wrap my face on a car. So like something's going on where you're like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's surrounded by yes people.
Oh, identity struggles. It's a whole thing. So
man, I know. Anyway, I hope she's doing well.
You guys picked up.
I'm gonna send her light and love. How about that? And then
we're
gonna leave it at that. Okay, things that we could have done. Nope, not us. This was not our fault. This was not our fault. Things that could have been done better. Am I saying that right? I feel like that's not
like this is just like I think this category is like those. Well, actually, your last one could probably fit in this. Like,
well, that was supposed to be a bridge.
Yeah, what a bridge. Jojo could have done 2024 better, right? And so I feel like this is just things that like I think there are ways that they could have done it better. These people and or brands in 2024. So I'll start because maybe that'll kick us off.
Thanks.
This is one where I was like, was this even this year? Because I feel like I've been talking about it a lot. And yes, it was, but it was at the beginning of the year. And this was the Woolworths CEO at the time. He's not the CEO anymore. The Woolworths CEO, Brad Banducci, on Four Corners in his Woolies branded t-shirt.
Yes.
Just losing his shit.
Oh, Brad. Where's Brad now?
Walking out. You can hear the PR person in the background. It's worth another watch. I went back and watched it again and was like, oh, Brad.
You know what? Someone recently asked, like, in the mixing board community, like, hey, does anyone have any examples of, like, crash and burn CEO interviews? And I was like, boy, do I.
Let me share with you. Yeah. So I think there's, like, I've talked about this before, but I want to kind of do the, like, what could be done better, right? Okay. So I want to preface with all of this to say Four Corners is an investigative journalism program on the ABC here. I'm sure they set it up in a different way. I'm sure there were layers to what had been going on that morning. I think we probably saw part of the footage and maybe they'd been hounding him for an hour before that. Like all of those things could have happened. I still deep down believe that as the CEO of one of the largest, if not the largest supermarket chain in Australia, in a cost of living crisis, you cannot get up from the interview and walk out. You can stand your ground. You can say, things calmly. You can not respond when someone's agitating you. But to our point in the election chat in that podcast where we talked about taking the bait, like you took the bait. He was trying to get you agitated. That was the whole point. And I think the Woolies shirt, in context, we know that they all do wear those shirts. It's kind of a thing. I just don't think it was a good look. like, you are the CEO, wear a suit, this is important.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, I get the whole thinking behind it, but I just don't think any of it worked. I think hearing the PR person in the background is painful, but I do get that as well. So I just think it was one of those things where it was never going to be a good interview. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. That was not an interview that was going to be like, wow, Woolies is doing such a good job. But I think they could have come across as humble, as calm,
Yeah.
and like, it is what it is. The environment is the environment. But he just came across entitled, cranky, you know, all these things. Anyway, he's not CEO anymore, but
I was going to ask you. I was like, what's Brad
he's always
doing
leaving
now?
in September, and then they had the inquiry, and it was like, it was a crash and burn scenario anyway. But yeah, he's not. I think he finished up in September, but this was at the beginning of the year. But it's just worth a watch for all those PR people out there who.
It is a good learning tool, and it is a good tool to show your executives if you're in a media training. Put that in there, folks.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got another CEO one during discussions around inflation and food costs soaring. The Kellogg's CEO recommending that cereal was a good option for dinner.
Yes, that was a great one.
Be better. Be better.
Tone deaf.
I think tone deaf also, it shows that even it's about the message, and it's about the it's about the context, and it's about all of these things. You can have like a CEO who is beloved and really gregarious, and you say something like that without being able to read the room or the economy of the state that everything is in. And you say something slight like that, and
and in other times, it's like, to different audiences, cereal for dinner is fun, like college students, and like, you know, like tone deaf on the environment, right? And it's like, and this is the thing, is like, messages at different times work.
Yeah.
And that just isn't the right time, and you're missing the point that people literally cannot afford to feed their families.
Yes.
Yeah.
Millionaire CEO.
Great one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one.
Do you have another one?
Done better.
Could have been better. Could have just been not said.
Could have just been not said.
My last one, I think you're going to be mad at me about, because I know that you're like oddly protective of this person. But just because of light of recent news, I'm going to say Raygun's rise and fall.
Oh, that's a great one.
So Raygun, for all of you that have been living under a rock, was the Australian break dancer in the Olympics. And she has come back to Australia and like made a little empire for herself. Like, she's kind of this like female empowerment movement. She's kind of this like self-expression movement. People either love her or hate her. I feel like she's very polarizing. But what has recently just happened is that somebody set up a musical at a comedy club where they were going to do like the Raygun musical. And Raygun, instead of having a laugh about herself, which is like the most Aussie thing that you could do, like have a laugh at something,
like,
especially yourself.
Yeah.
She ended up like suing the comedy club or the comedian. I can't remember which one specifically it was, for 10 grand.
It was something like that. Yeah.
Like crazy.
Like,
couldn't even have a laugh at herself after all of the laughing that had happened.
But also like,
and where do you draw the line? Like, why is that show the thing that she decided to act on?
Does she have so little self-awareness to know that what she did was pretty funny? Like,
yeah, I think yes now.
I also commend her. Like, you're right. Like, I commended her at the time. I think good on you for having a go. That's what I want my kids to always want to do. But you have to have the self-awareness to know that you were not good, right? Like,
you
did
not win.
I don't care. Like, that's not the point. Like, the point is we've never had someone in the breakdance. Like, it was new. Like, great, there's Australian. I would be embracing the quirkiness of it all. And I would be like, yep, that's me. Like, I just love to dance. And she's an academic. Like, she studies this stuff, right? So in my head, I think she takes herself very seriously. And the fact that everyone's taking the piss, she's like, well, hang on a minute. I'm really serious about all this.
Yeah.
And I wish she would just be like, yeah, this is who I am. Like, I don't care. Like, it's funny. And like, go and introduce it at the comedy club. Like, how
Oh
fun
my
would
God.
it be? Like,
It would
and
be amazing. And like,
yeah.
I cannot, I cannot understand an Australian who wouldn't want an opportunity to laugh at themselves. Like, Aussies
Yeah.
love taking the piss out of
The
themselves.
only thing I'm now when I think about it, I'm like, okay, so if this is her profession, right? This is what she wants to do with her life. This is her profession. It would be like us doing a PR thing and then everybody ripping on us for weeks and weeks and weeks about how bad we are at PR.
But have you ever seen like a journalist post a PR person's
Yeah.
email that was a shit pitch? Like we talked about that in Pitching
Yeah.
Cat Food, that episode. Like we do get that.
Yeah.
She needs thicker skin. That's soft.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
the
That is
suing
soft.
thing- The suing thing is ridiculous. Like, come
And
on.
like, why now?
And also, those people aren't out to get you. Like, don't bankrupt a comedy club because they're doing like, yeah, no, that's a good one. Could have been done.
And in this economy,
I'm like, I don't know, like, couldn't been done better. To your point, like, I think she could have really made this a thing. Like, she could have done appearances. She could have actually made this a really fun, funny thing. She could have run things for kids on breakdancing. Like,
I honestly think if she introduced it,
yeah,
it would have been hilarious.
Yeah,
so good.
Okay. Could have been done better.
Yeah. Okay. Anywho, that's the list, folks, of what was good and what could have been done better.
Yeah. I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones that stood out for us. Should we do some quick fire personal stuff?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let's do top 3 things for you for 2024. Let's do a shared one.
Does it have to? Yes, exactly. Podcast for sure. The share, I have that on my list. I also think I love the podcast so much, not only because I get to, talk to you every single week, but also like how good is it getting to see all of our friends in our network and chat with them and just kind of highlight all the good work that they're doing and lift them up a bit. It's been even nice to reunite.
Like when you bump into people and they're like, "Oh, I've been listening," and you're like, "Oh God,"
it makes my butt cheeks clench.
Same. But I also love that, and it's like really nice to hear that people are enjoying it and the comments that people. I just think it's a real achievement for us, like patting ourselves on our backs,
toot toot,
that we got it up and running, because we have been talking about it for a while, and like to actually like get our shit into gear and be like, how do we actually make this happen? And then we made it happen. So like, bitches get stuff done.
It's absolutely right. Do you want to go with your individ?
I will just say, like, overall 2024 roller coaster ride from a job perspective. And it's funny, like, you always look back in hindsight and things are different. But, like, really, I think the redundancy was the gift that I didn't know I needed. I, had some amazing time off that I think you never really get back. And I've been working pretty damn hard for a long time. So to have, like, proper time off, and my kids are in daycare most of the week, and to, like, invest in me, do the pod, catch up with old friends, like, and have, like, this kind of second – I was kind of calling it my second mat leave, even though the kids went around, but like be a bit more invested in the kids' schooling, like be the mum that came to all the daycare things, like just all of that stuff I think was really nice. But then to get a new job before the end of the year, I think was also, something that like was weighing on my mind a little bit. And I just feel really settled now going into next year. And, I think having that time off also made me realize that I love work and I love what I do and I want to use my brain, and it's not really my vibe to just be at home. It's nice for a little while. But for me personally, I love to work. So, that's my kind of like, I think that's the summary for me of 2024 is like a bit of a roller coaster, but in hindsight, probably the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah. I love that. And I also think, similar theme for me in the sense of like going through and building a business is really scary. And especially when I feel like, and you would know this of me, but like imposter syndrome is just like woven into my being. So going off and doing your own thing and then working with executives that you really respect or have a really high profile, like I find that the more that I'm doing that in my individual kind of my business, um, the more I realize that I know what I'm fucking talking about, which is really great. And I feel like
Yeah.
having that clarity, knowing the direction I want to take the business and kind of what the next year is going to be like, and already having some goals set for myself, feels really good. But I also think it makes me, when I'm not worrying about work, because I will sit and stew, I also think that it's made me a better partner. Like, I think that, I'm more present when I'm not working because I feel so settled in what I'm going to do moving forward. And I'm
Very nice.
really grateful for like having that clarity, and just also really grateful for the support that Scott has given me and the patience with my emotional roller coaster. So, yeah, just a big year of gratitude. Lots of learnings, lots of tests, but I think we both have really come out on the other side. I'm happy
Yeah.
for
Do you
you.
know what I think one of the like key lessons for me this year, and I think it applies to this pod, is like how important your network is.
Yeah.
And like, I look at this year and like who we've got on the pod is all just from us and our network.
Hmm.
Most of them are not like cold invites. It's all people that we've worked with at some point that we know
Yep.
through so and so, and we've reached out, and everybody has been so gracious in coming on. But it's reminded me of like how important that network is. Same with like my job and how supportive, people were so willing to jump on the phone and be a reference and
Mm.
things like that, where it's like I've invested in that network as well, and I make sure that I stay in contact with people, and and
Yeah.
it's all organic, but I think it's really important. And then the other week I went out for like Christmas drinks with a few old Salesforce women,
Oh, fun.
um and it was just so nice. And it was like, there's a few of us not at Salesforce anymore, there's a few that are, like, it's a bit of a
Mhm.
mix, but we're all kind of women who work together at Salesforce. And it was just this like really wholesome, fun afternoon of drinks and just catching up. And it just reminded me that, like, you can build these beautiful networks at jobs, and,
Yep.
the jobs may come and go, but that network and those friendships, and like, that's us,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's how we met. So I think just for people, like, as a takeaway for 2024, for all the PR people listening, is like, don't underestimate the power of that network that you're building, and make sure you're
Hmm.
kind of, remembering to reach out to people and engage. And yeah, that's really, really a highlight for me this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think your network is your net worth. I think.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, you like
Yeah, I
that?
like that.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to
We got-
comment
we
on?
need to do a dumb in private to end the series.
Oh gosh. I hadn't even thought about it dumb and
Yeah, I
private, but
know.
I'm sure I have several. Do you have
Uh,
one?
I just have one that's like, I feel like, again, is a really good representation of just me as a whole human in 2024.
Okay.
Just how awkward I am when I get a spray tan.
Oh my God. Yes, I have a story about a spray tan as well. Keep
Like,
going.
the weirdest scenario. Like, really, if you really break it down, it's an odd scenario. Like, you're basically naked
Yeah.
in front of someone who's spraying you with a liquid. And you've got to do all the movements. And you know
Uh-huh.
me, like, I'm not, if someone's coordinating a movement and I have to do it, then I get all awkward and I do the opposite. Like, I can't, it's like a soul cycle class, like anything like that, a Zumba class, like, don't get me into those. And I
Yeah.
feel like spray tans are kind of similar. And I've got a lot in my time. Like, I am a regular spray tanner. But I just get so awkward about the arm going up and then the arm down and then turn around.
Mhm.
And like, I turn the wrong way. And then I get funny about like being not in my clothes. I don't know where to look. And I got a spray tan last night. So that's why I'm like saying this story. But it's not really a dumb in private, but it's just like, are there people that go get spray tans and don't have these thoughts the whole way time in their head? Because
I
that,
honestly think that there are people that do
yeah.
not overthink it and have
I
a
think there
fine
are.
time.
I'm sure I've been friends with some of them, and then they're like I just I cannot. The brain does not switch off. I find it awkward and I still push through because I want to spray tan. But like, actually, side note, Sydney just started bringing in these like 24-hour like self-tanning, like, there's always been like self-tanning booths, but apparently these ones are amazing. And you go in with a code and there's no one there and you grab like your things you need, you walk in, you get your tan and you go out.
Like a mister.
But it's, like a mister. But apparently they're really good, and they're not like, I always think of Ross from Friends when he gets the 2 and the 4 and the
oh yeah,
when he gets like a terrible tan in one of those booths. So I've never been brave enough. But someone told me they're really good and they actually do a really nice tan. And so I was like, oh my God, this is my dream. I don't have to talk to a human. I can literally go in. So I'm going to investigate. But that's the side note.
Report back in the new year.
Will do.
Mine is going to be about our airport experience that happened on Monday. So Scott and I went and visited our friends that live in Vail. They're also from Australia, but they've moved to Vail. They've lived there for like 6 years. And we were flying home and Scott got a really bad cold on like Saturday. So now it's Monday morning and he is at the height of the cold. Like he's really not doing well. And when Scott is not well, we fall apart as a family. Like I do not pay attention enough outside of like my job eats all my brain. So like day-to-day life for me is like in the dumpster. So we're navigating through Denver airport and poor Scott was like, can you just tell me which way to go? And I'm like, yep, I've got it. And then in Denver airport, if you don't know, if you go into the United Terminal, it is, I think, the longest terminal in the United States. It's like a quarter of a mile long and, or something like that. And so I walked Scott from the middle of the terminal all the way to the end of the terminal, thinking I was going the right direction until we hit the wall. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we're going the wrong way. Luckily we were in our to catch our next flight. And so then I made him walk all the way back down to the end of the terminal. We go into the United Club, like he's dying. He's so sick. And it's time to go. And so we leave the club and I walk him accidentally the wrong way out of the club all the way back down.
Oh my God.
And he was like, Katie, please, like, I just need you to help me with this one time.
Scott carries that ship every other time.
Every time. Because my head's in the clouds. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I want a water. Oh, I wonder what that smells like. Oh, is that a Cinnabon? Like, I'm everywhere when we're walking through the airport. I'm like a dog that is getting a new sensory experience.
All this reminds me of is us catching the red eye to New York from San Francisco after Dreamforce and you staying out most of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Upgrading yourself overnight in your drunken state. Without telling me, so I'm not upgraded. And then like me trying to get us to that airport with you in some form of a state. Basically, I'm Scott at this point, and I understand his pain. I understand. And
my favorite is I still tell people because I upgraded myself to first class to that flight, and then Duffy and I were supposed to sit next to each other, and I'm already flat. And have a blanket on me with the cheese plate.
As I roll in.
By the time Duffy has come onto the plane in her boarding order, and she just goes into my ear and goes, "Friends don't upgrade on friends."
Right. Or at least tell me. Anyway, classic boyfriend.
Anywho, I'm at the worst.
It was fine. It was fun. We had a great time that trip.
Oh my God.
Alrighty. I feel like we're at the end.
We're here. We did it. Have a happy holiday season to everybody. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting us throughout the year as we've been on our podcast journey. And please reach out to us at hello@Smart in Public Pod or on TikTok or Instagram at Smart in Public Pod. Love you guys.
See you in 2025.
Okay, bye.
Bye.